Hi there, I'm Chris Rachel Oslin with the Austin Post.
And I'm Gavin Stone with Fanboy TV, and welcome to our South by Southwest live coverage. I'm completely at lost for words. We've had a great, interesting day so far, to say the least. And so who do we have next?
Today we have Eva Orner, who's actually Skyping in from Australia to talk about her amazing documentary called The Network. Thank you so much for being with us, Eva.
Hi, I'm actually in LA. That's where I live, but I am Australian.
Well, you know, with Skype, you never know where it's from. We're going to start off by showing people a clip of the trailers just to give them a good feel about what the movie is. So let's go ahead and roll that.
We went to this public execution, and they brought this guy into the stadium, and he was accused of murdering a relative.
They brought in and just shot him in the head.
That had become the only entertainment in the city. There was nothing else. The country had completely shut down, so people didn't have access to media. People couldn't believe that the Taliban would be finally defeated. That's when people finally believed something good is about to happen.
The way we thought we could re-engage with the country was to actually do something business-wise. And we established Afghanistan's first independent media outlet.
You know, you go into villages that haven't seen the wheel yet, and suddenly there, you know, you'll see a television hooked up to a car battery, and 50 people are watching Tolo.
It was really a period where most Afghans thought, this is the time, this is our chance, we've finally got our opportunity and we can make a change.
It's a fool's game to try to predict the future, particularly in a place as chaotic and crazy as Afghanistan. I think there's a lot of storm clouds ahead.
So, that was a trailer for The Network, and if you're like me, you're thinking that's a pretty intense movie that we're about to watch. And it's real, it's a documentary, which is incredibly fascinating.
Now, if you take a look at the picture-in-picture here, you can see that Eva is a blonde, white, fairly attractive woman, not someone you normally think of as...
Fairly attractive? This is coming from a woman. You need a guy's point of view. She's pretty hot. Okay, we're just going to put it that way.
The point is... The point is, Afghanistan's not the world's friendliest place for a hot, blonde, Western woman. How did that work for you there?
It's definitely a challenging place to be, and I'm not a war correspondent. I'm not a seasoned conflict zone dweller. So for me, it was really shocking the first time I went there. You know, just having to cover yourself, cover your head. I mean, obviously, if I walked around like this, I would be pretty much killed on the streets, I think. So it was definitely challenging, and you're right. You know, people could spot me from probably miles away that I was a foreigner, no matter how covered up I am, because you don't get much whiter than I do.
Well, and I would also think that like body language is very different. I've got an Asian American friend who goes to Europe on a regular basis, and everyone can tell she's American. She's like, why can they tell? Like, because you've got a baseball cap and a sweatshirt, and your posture's very American. So were they able to tell just even from if you're completely covered in
I mean, you don't have to be completely covered. You just have to wear a headscarf. Okay. So, you know, my hair was covered and my neck was covered, and obviously your arms and your legs. You can't show any wrist or any skin. But I think just my face and my complexion is so pale, and I was pretty hopeless with a headscarf. And you know, within an hour, my hair would somehow magically fall out of it, and there'd be blonde hair everywhere. So it was this constant joke about the fact that my headscarf was falling off and I was inappropriately covered. But no, it's definitely a tough environment for any woman, even an Afghan woman. Yeah. So I think for a foreign woman, it's about as far away from what we're used to as you can get.
So, how intense was it over there? And did it frighten you to be in the middle of all of this while you were doing this? Like, was there ever a point where you're like, I can't believe I'm doing this, I'm crazy, and some intense things happened?
Yeah. I mean, the first time I went on my own for a month, and my biggest fear was Saad Hosseini, who the film is, who owns the television station and the film centres on, had said to me very kindly he would send a car with the driver to pick me up from the airport, and I was just obsessed with the fact that what if he didn't turn up, what if there was no driver, my phone wouldn't work, it's not like you can get into a cab at Kabul airport, what would I do, where would I go? Of course there was a driver waiting with a security guard with a massive Kalashnikov, so I felt pretty safe, and they were super nice even though they didn't speak English. So that was kind of my first minute in Afghanistan. You do get used to it. You get used to seeing people with guns all over the place. Yeah. You don't usually know who most of them are, and you just hope they don't point them at you or shoot you or kidnap you. And it's tricky. You can't just walk down the street. You can't just get in a car to go anywhere. Everything's complicated to do, and so making a film there is incredibly difficult. And, when I got there, everyone said to me, you're going to have a close call. Everyone has a close call. And our close call was on Ashura, which is a Shia holy day when Shias take to the street and they celebrate the anniversary of Muhammad's grandson, and they actually self-flagellate with knives, and it's quite an extraordinary day where thousands of men are on the street whacking themselves with blades, and they're covered in blood, and we were covered in blood, and it was a little bit of the footage is in the film just as B-roll. But as we were leaving, we were there for like 2 hours, there were thousands of people on the street, and as we drove off, we heard the dreaded kaboom, and a suicide bomb had gone off, and over 80 people were killed ultimately, and it was exactly where we had been. So it was a horrible feeling, and it was a horrible day. And one of the feelings I always had was, it was just me and my DP. We had a really small crew because it's so dangerous and difficult to shoot there, but I just always was very aware if something happened to him, I mean, what is the price of having an idea or making a film? It's certainly not somebody's life. Yeah. So I was always very aware of that. And then the other silly incident we had, we went hiking in the Panjshir Valley one day. We just needed a break to get out of Kabul, and we were hiking up this beautiful mountain, and our driver came running up to me, and he'd never touched me because he's a fundamental, religious Muslim, and he would never touch me, but he came up to me and whacked me in the side, and I went flying, and I landed, and I was kind of like, am I allowed to swear on this show? No. I was like, what the, Mustafa? And he pointed sheepishly at the ground, and there was like a landmine that I was about to step on. And I was sprawled out on the ground, kind of bruised on my butt. And I was like, dude, I thought you said we were hiking where there were no landmines. And through the translator, his response was, well, not many landmines.
Oh, wow. So the film starts off with a very intense beginning scene where the man is talking about just going out to a stadium because the only entertainment, I'm not giving anything away, it was in the preview, the only entertainment there is watching people get assassinated. How were you able to find people willing to be on a film when the local form of entertainment is seeing people get killed?
Yeah.
Well, that was during the Taliban days, so that no longer happens. That was like in the late 90s.
Okay.
And the guy telling that story is Shafi, and he's actually a journalist in Afghanistan who lived through the entire Taliban period, and he was recounting a story, and then the footage that you see is archival material that we bought of an execution. So that doesn't happen anymore, thankfully, but obviously, the future's unstable there, and who knows what will happen. And the reason I chose to start the film like that was I wanted to show where the country has come from, its recent past. That was 10 years ago, and now look at how amazing it is comparatively.
It is. It's a big change.
Yeah. Were you actually, was it easy to find people that were willing to be in the documentary, though? I mean, there's also the Muslim prescriptions against graven images, things along those lines, and yet you've got a TV station. What was the conflict like with that?
I mean, when I first wanted to make the film, I'd heard about Saad Masani, who runs this amazing television station in Afghanistan, him and his family. Mm-hmm. And so I first heard about him, and I thought, there could be a film here. And so I called him in Afghanistan. And weirdly, Saad's family were exiled when the Russians invaded, and strangely, they grew up in my hometown of Melbourne, Australia.
Really?
And so the first time I spoke to him, he's got, an accent of the world, but I definitely can pick up his Melbourne twang in his accent. And so the first time we spoke, he said he agreed to letting me come and film the film. And so once he'd given me the approval, then I went to Afghanistan and I spent some time at the TV station and met a lot of the people there and kind of went looking for characters. And pretty much everyone was happy to be in the film. I think they wanted to share their story. They wanted the world to see a different view of Afghanistan, not crazy mujahideen and not Taliban fighters and not American or, international military. This is a story about just young, educated kids in Afghanistan who just want a chance at life. And I think they were very eager to tell their story.
So is this your first documentary feature?
It is as a director. I've been producing for like 20 years. I've, I've made, gosh.
Well, you also did the Hunter S. Thompson film with Johnny Depp narrating, right?
I did I produced Gonzo, which played at South by Southwest, and I also produced Taxi to the Dark Side, which we won an Oscar for and an Emmy. I've produced a ton of films, but after 20 years, this one spoke to me, and I thought, I need to direct this film. I don't know why. And now I'm directing another film.
What do you have coming up?
It's actually, I just started filming, I just got back from Beirut, and it's actually about gay Iraqi refugees trying to get out of Iraq. You like to go with the safe films, the things that aren't very controversial.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm so fun.
So, Eva, thank you for coming to talk to us about your film. When can people see this during South by Southwest?
It premieres on Monday the 11th at 7 p.m. And then there's another screening on the Wednesday and then the Thursday.
Great.
Well, congratulations on getting into South by Southwest with this amazing film. It was super fun to talk to you.
Yeah, and anybody out there that has a chance to see it, really, this is very powerful stuff. I can't recommend it highly enough.
A very good film. So congratulations on such an excellent job, Ava. And
thank you, and I'll be there. Come and see the film and ask me lots of questions.
Great.
Even more than we have now?
More.
Well, we'll see you then there.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.